The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. One is very crazy when in love. Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. The only thing that brings me real pleasure now is my work. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. The ego is not master in its own house. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. The goal of all life is death. The mind is energy, and to be effective, it must have direction and purpose. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Analogies, it is true, decide nothing, but they can make one feel more at home. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. When inspiration does not come to me, I go halfway to meet it. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. The goal of therapy is not to change who you are, but to become who you are. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. A woman will never want sex a man who doesn't get her hints. A man who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? No one who, like me, conjures up the most evil of those half-tamed demons that inhabit the human breast, and seeks to wrestle with them, can expect to come through the struggle unscathed. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. The only thing that matters is love, and the only thing worth fighting for is love. The mind is like an ancient city, with layers upon layers of ruins. Time spent with cats is never wasted. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious mind. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. Where ID was, their ego shall be. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. From error to error, one discovers the entire truth. A person is a mystery to himself and to others. The tendency to aggression is an innate, independent, instinctual disposition in man. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. The madman is a dreamer awake. Thinking is an experimental dealing with small quantities of energy, just as a general moves miniature figures over a map before setting his troops in action. Religious doctrines are all illusions, they do not admit of proof, and no one can be compelled to consider them as true or to believe in them. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. What decides the purpose of life is simply the program of the pleasure principle. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. The devil has no horns, he has an attractive face. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint when they sometimes collide with a bit of reality against which they are dashed to pieces. The psychical, whatever its nature may be, is itself unconscious. The unconscious is the true psychic reality. In its innermost nature, it is as much unknown to us as the reality of the external world, and it is as incompletely presented by the data of consciousness as is the external world by the communications of our sense organs. When you are in love and you get hurt, it's like a cut, it will heal, but there will always be a scar. The unconscious is the true psychic reality. In its innermost nature, it is as much unknown to us as the reality of the external world. Wherever I go, I shall speak of you with love. The ego is not master in its own house. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. The only thing that matters is love.